So 15 years. It's a time for looking back, looking forward, reflecting. And what's really striking is that Acumen grew up against a global backdrop of two real forces: unquestioned capitalism and accelerating technology. And those two forces have connected us across the world in ways we couldn't really imagine. Beautiful ways, promising ways. And yet at the same time, as we know, those forces have created disconnection, dissonance, division, fear. We are more unequal as a world than ever, and it's an inequality that is unjust, unsustainable, and it is dangerous. We can see each other now, and we hardly know each other. And yet, for 15 years, we've been carving a path through this challenging terrain of peril and possibility. And I think that we actually have found at least some of the way. When we think about some of those founding principles that Baratunde read so beautifully, I'd like to just go back to 5 that I think still really hold us in good stead. Number 1, it starts by standing with the poor. We did not start Acumen to prove that you could invest in low-income markets and make money. We started Acumen to use the principles of business and entrepreneurship to solve problems of poverty. That means to stand with the poor, we have to take risks where nobody else will dare. We have to accompany our entrepreneurs for longer than we would like sometimes, to let them fail and succeed. To stand with the poor means to reject and walk away from unethical leaders and find partnerships with corporations, foundations, government that are willing and prioritize walking on this path to fight poverty with us. The CEO of Unilever, Paul Polman, one of our partners, has said that there is no business case for enduring poverty. Principle number 2 is patience. Now, we are not patient people. We have a sense of urgency that wants these problems solved yesterday. But we're not here just to build individual companies. We want to take on systems. And as you've heard a number of times tonight, taking on a system means rejecting and fighting a status quo. And we've learned in these 15 years that the status quo is not just corrupt politicians and extortionary businesses, but it's the cultural guardians. It's the middlemen and the slumlords and the community leaders, and sometimes it's the mothers-in-laws. Fighting that status quo takes a patience that embeds a sense of grit. And if you don't have the grit to fight corruption, you should not be in this game. The good news is 15 years in, we now can take the long view. We can see how patience actually does work. So we have been invested in a company called Water Health International for 12 years. Sanjay Bhatnagar, the CEO, is in the room today. This was the first distributive model for bringing clean, safe drinking water to rural areas and urban slums where people could afford it. And in years 6, 7, 8, we didn't know if this company would make it. And if we were traditional investors, we may have liquidated the company to protect the shareholders. But by staying in with other investors, Water Health International today brings clean, safe drinking water to 7 million people every day. And seriously, you imagine a population almost the size of New York that gets what we take for granted, that doesn't have to worry about their babies dying from diarrhea disease, that has dignity, access, patience. We've been invested in D-Light for 10 years. 2 young guys out of Stanford that had a solar torch and a dream to eradicate kerosene. And today, D-Light has brought safe, affordable electricity and light to 66 million people across the world. You don't have to clap, because we're just getting started. D-Light has taught us how to invest in solar, and now we've invested in 20 companies across the ecosystem. That has given us insights, understanding, so that we can build a separate initiative to take some of these companies seriously to scale. we intend to invest $50 million over the next 3 to 5 years in East Africa so that we can prove finally to government that just like Bob Collymore helped Africa and the rest of the world leapfrog the landlines so that we can use cell phones in energy, we can leapfrog the electric grid and bring clean, affordable energy to individuals from their own right, in their own way. And when you have 700 million people in Africa that do not have access to electricity, that is an idea whose time has come. And we're grateful for the people in this room that have supported this initiative, and so watch that space. To do this, of course, requires what Steph kept talking about, that you can't accept the miserable state of what is. You need to imagine the world that we can build, and that's principle 3, the moral imagination. It starts with empathy, putting yourself in each other's shoes, but it goes beyond that, to imagining and building the systems in which we can all participate. In Latin America, our team has been investing in post-conflict areas where people have lived for 52 years with civil war. And it is so moving to go and visit, see these companies, these entrepreneurs who dare to see farmers not just as producers, but as partners, who refuse to play the game that pushes global commodity prices and makes the poor bear the burden of their fluctuations, but understands that the poor need and value stability as much as they value income. So these companies are creating fixed price contracts to make the farmers feel safe, to let them plan their lives, and in return, the farmers are giving them a better quality product. And equally as important, trust, which is the rarest currency that we have. So we're learning not just how to solve problems of poverty through these companies, but how to soften the edges of capitalism. And we're seeing that same kind of moral imagination here in the United States. It has been thrilling with partners in this room to launch Acumen America this spring. And finding entrepreneurs that are working in healthcare and workforce development and financial inclusion. And like these other entrepreneurs around the world, these individuals are daring to build business models that transcend markets and government, left and right. And in doing so, they're giving us stories, as we have in other parts of the world, so that maybe we can help heal those broken debates about how to fix those broken systems and teach the world a better way. That is moral imagination in action, and that requires better definitions, better measures of success, and that comes from listening, as Bob said. And it's our 4th principle. Because of the ubiquity of cell phones, for the first time in my lifetime, we are able to talk directly to all of the customers of these companies through SMS technology and through getting on the phone with them. And our team has now interacted with over 20,000 of these customers. So we now know that 60% of the customers across all of these portfolios make under $2.50 a day. We can now hold ourselves to account for standing with the poor. Our lean data is allowing us now to also understand and articulate how a family increases their income and their health care by buying a cook stove. But we're also, for instance, we're also learning who these individuals are. They tell us what they like about the products, they tell us what they don't, they suggest ways to improve it, and they're starting to share their dreams. A bonded laborer in India told us that his dream was to earn enough income to educate his children, to buy his freedom out of bondage, and to achieve something in his life that he and his family would be proud of. As human beings, we yearn to be seen, to count, to be counted, to matter, all of us. And in that lies this incredible opportunity, despite all the ugliness and division that we're seeing in the world. We have a new generation that doesn't want to work at companies unless the companies are focusing on sustainability. We are seeing a radical transparency emerging that's going to allow all of us access to these supply chains so that we can build fair, more just systems. It's thrilling. And it's difficult because on the one hand, we see the opportunity, but the old rules are still too often in play. And that's why the fifth principle of moral leadership is so critical to everything we do, to everything you do. Learning how to navigate the gray. We've been investing in leaders for 10 years, 321 strong. You met the extraordinary Steph. Now close your eyes and imagine 300 of her around the world. Our fellows hail from 32 countries. They are diverse by race and nationality and religion and class, from the tribals of Pakistan to the slums of Nairobi, to young people with Harvard MBAs, to kids from Saudi Arabia and Japan and China, and they are beautiful. And they have taught us not only about leadership, what it takes to build the kinds of companies they dream of building, but of fellowship, that we have to be here for each other. And our dream is to take this to thousands. People who trust each other not because of tribe, but because they are bonded by shared values and a vision, a promise to focus on solving the problems of poverty with and for each other. And they also take into account the promise to hold each other accountable to those promises. And because of the work that we're doing and the hunger that we're seeing in the world for it, we decided to take the lessons and put them online in what Sasha Dichter calls the World School for Social Change. And already these online courses, most of them free, have been taken by over 250,000 people. And those individuals are starting to create companies and organizations and integrate these principles into what they do and feel that they are part of a community. This community that encompasses some of the richest and the lowest income people in the world across all these divides, bonded by values. It's extraordinary. And so what I think about personally when I reflect on these 15 years in my own life is faith. Faith that enables us, me, to show up every day, to believe in this world that we can create together. Faith that is grounded in a love that is not always soft, but has learned how to be hard sometimes and resistant. Faith that is grounded in an understanding that my work is no more or less important than the work of the millions who toil every day, planning the food that we eat and the clothes that we wear, building all the beautiful things that make our lives so extraordinary. We have to ask ourselves what our responsibility is to each other, what our reciprocity is to each other. The Sufis say that there are two rules on the spiritual path: begin and continue. We started Acumen 15 years ago with this idea that we could use investment as a means, not an end, to solve problems of poverty and give people dignity, the poor dignity. And we got that half right. Where we were mistaken is that this work is about our dignity. And if I have learned anything since starting Acumen, it is that we do not have dignity as a human race until every one of us on the planet has dignity. We are each other's dignity and destiny. I am because you are. I am Mary in the hut in Kenya, so exuberant because she has electricity for the first time in her life, and equally exuberant to get her neighbors and her friends to buy these Delight products and change their lives. I am the rag pickers in Hyderabad who talk to us about how hard it was to save and how proud they are that they can have their babies in our hospital, LifeSpring, which is light and beautiful and sees them as people. I am 11-year-old Miriam in a Karachi school who's the first child to go to school in all of her family, and she dreams of being a teacher or maybe an astronaut. I am the poor farmers in Colombia who are weary of war, who are excited to build a company, who are unsure of how to do it, and who are waiting for us to accompany them, maybe for a long time, to make it happen. We are each other's destiny, and maybe this is the work of community. Maybe this is the work that makes us show up every day. The luminescent poet Gwendolyn Brooks writes, "We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. And trust me, we are only getting started." So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for making it happen. And here's to a great night. Thank you. Thank you. Really to you guys.